All right, can we put up the session 1 PowerPoint, Indoor Skydiving Summit, and we'll move right along. There's a little bit more housekeeping that I need to talk about. This event is being streamed live on our different outlets. We have it on .vision, which is our main website. You can scan this right off the QR that's up there. It's also, and that's where it originates, on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel that's called The Vision on YouTube. QR right here as well. And to our audience out there, maybe delegates to the IPC who found out about it in Russia, whatever questions you have, you can ask them through the chat function that's attached to the YouTube channel, and they will get eventually passed on to us here in a very non-sophisticated way through WhatsApp, and yeah. One more thing, basically a little bit of housekeeping regarding the schedule. We have a coffee break courtesy of Castello d'Empúries. They're inviting all of us. I think it's coffee and a croissant. Then between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, and this is important to point out, this town right now is celebrating its winter festival. There are probably 5,000 people living in this town, and there are restaurant capacities of whatever they are. But this being a festive day today, most families will be eating out. So don't count on being able to go during lunch break and have a lunch in a restaurant. It's not going to happen. That's why we had the food catered in. All our panelists, obviously, you're our guests. If somebody of the audience would like to join in, I think our staff is selling tickets for the price of 12 euros, which is quite a bargain for first, second plate, dessert, wine, and whatever else. I mean, Spanish way, done the Spanish way. And then in the afternoon, once again, a coffee break courtesy of the town hall. And here, a little bit of a message that comes also from the bottom of our heart. We really overextended ourselves on pulling this off. I mean, we had partners dropping out, and we decided, let's keep going, doesn't really matter. And so now we did this crowdfunding initiative, help us make the summit, and QR right here, and you can donate freely, and if you probably wait until the end. You yourself judging this was worth it. I'm going to put up 50, 100, whatever. It will be appreciated, whatever it is. Thank you very much. So now we actually get into our panel discussion. Okay? Is something happening? All right. Joachim, we already heard from Joachim as a keynote speaker. Now he will be talking about the World Games a little bit more in detail. Then we have Simon Ward, who just very recently was appointed CEO of the biggest operator, franchisor, manufacturer in the industry, iFLY. We have Patrice Girardin, and who doesn't know Patrice? He is Monsieur la Fédération Française de Parachutisme, multiple world champion, I don't know how many times?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. In any case, everybody knows it. And then we have here, we have my good friend Reindert. He comes from a sport that I think has a lot to do with what we're doing here. Okay? And he will talk about that a little bit later. I now see that we have Andrey as well. Andrey, can you come up here? You either were hiding there or you just woke up now. All right, let me tell you about this a little bit. It was maybe 2 months ago or a month ago. We got a hold of each other and, hello, good morning. Andrey is working for one of the bigger manufacturers, Russian manufacturers, Tunnel Tech. But Andrey does much more than just that. I mean, you are the business development officer there. It's a desk job, but aside from your desk job, you're also having another very serious job. He's probably the most multifaceted action man I've ever come across. He is, let me try to hit it all in once. He's a big wave surfer. You know, in these photographs you see, some nuts there's usually a light tower in the picture and huge monster wave, and one guy just, that's him. I'm one of them. You're a base jumper, contour flyer. He's a contour flyer, doesn't use any wingsuits. He's just doing it with his own body. You're an experienced skydiver. You're not that experienced an indoor skydiver. You only have, I think, 40 hours, you said.
40 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's this really a little bit of everything. A little bit of paragliding, slackline we said. Slackline we also have. You know what slackline is? It's also one of these fashionable, trendy sports that, who knows, could be in the Olympics one of these days, because it's right there in terms of demographics. So let's get started on session one, the real topic, and we're not the only ones, or skydiving is not the only sport that developed an indoor variation. There are quite a few others. And can we play in video number 1, please? David?
My name is Fernando Aguirre. I am the president of the International Surfing Association, and I like to surf every day. The ocean is the greatest equalizer. There is no really admission fees, no membership fees. You don't need to belong to a certain race, religion, gender, weight size, or anything to surf. The ocean has not been privatized, sold, rented, so we all have a chance to enjoy it. And maybe like a year ago, something like that, one day I woke up and I realized that the dream that I was having when I woke up, it was the reality. From having for the first time all the dream surfing teams of the world together, all the top stars, the guys that I met when they were 15 or 16 as juniors, and I saw them winning medals or gold medals, and they're all together now. Next to, the full team of Senegal. It's like a team from Thailand, Indonesia, American Samoa. I think it's probably, this is a sensitive point, because I carry on my heart my parents, my grandparents, so the people that really made me who I am. And my grandparents on my mom's side were very, limited income. He was a taxi driver and she was a housewife that used to work as a maid on a hotel. I was maybe 16 or 17, and one day my grandma showed up and gave me the most expensive jacket that I couldn't buy. And I knew how life was difficult for them, how difficult life was for them. So I told her, I said, "You're crazy. This is like, why do you do that?" And she said, "I'm not sure you're gonna get it now, but eventually I think you're gonna get it." And giving is much better than receiving, because by receiving, nobody has ever become a better human being. But if you give, you might get a chance.
All right, this was kind of an emotional touch, and we know him, Fernando, and he is as colorful as he looks, and he was definitely the mover and shaker behind the successful bid of surfing to make it into the Olympics. They will premiere this year in Tokyo in July. They will do this with their outdoor variation, but this was basically left in the air until very recently, like mid last year, when they decided, well, no, we're not going to use a wave pool, we're going to actually go for it in Mother Nature, and that's a risky business. To do their events, which only involve a small number of athletes, they had to allocate almost 10 days of competition just to be ready for all types of contingencies in terms of weather, waves, wind, God knows. The safer bet would have been to take this to a wave pool, and there are wave pools right now being built. I don't think quite as many and as in indoor skydiving, but it is a huge industry. There are probably 3 or 4 industry leaders, one of them a Spanish company from the Basque Country. They're called Wavegarden, and Wavegarden, they produced this video on the smallest version of the wave pool they have. It's called the Cove, and what I really find significant, the people you will be listening to right now are professionals, world champions. I mean, top of the top in surfing. In many ways, they will probably be the ones that fight for the medals in Tokyo. Can we go video number 2, please?
I'm back, as usual, every year I'm here. Waves are really flat, and then I got the invite to come here and try the new slab and the new waves, so I was really excited.
I don't need recognition, I'm on a mission, I'm paying dues, I'm in position, I'm staying up, it's getting late, you're doing good, I'm doing great, recognition, I'm on a mission, I'm paying dues, I'm in position, I'm staying up, it's getting late, you're doing good, I'm doing great, hours of practice, they don't feel like working, overthinking, I don't mean to let the pain and hurting. I was main stage with trying to get a festival. Realities of just less than 24 hours pass and I'm back to working. The wages are minimum. When you know your worth is more, you make your own curriculum. Study in the industry. I know you see me
professionals here training. It's a cost-efficient way of doing it. You don't have to take any other means of transportation to get out into the surf. It's right there. Cameras are right next to you as well. So this is fairly impressive in terms of infrastructure. I have a little bit of an idea what the investment represents, and it's in line with what's being spent on state-of-the-art wind tunnels these days. All right, we showed these 2 videos not to kind of say, hey, Olympics, that's where it's at. That's indoor skydiving needs to be in the Olympics in order to be viable. By no means. By no means. It's basically, it's a success story. They tried it. They were thinking outside the box. They had a very, very powerful personality that did a lot of things right in terms of lobbying. And ultimately, they pulled it off. It will change their sport, and it already did. And change it in a way that they have growth rates approaching 25% now. I mean, surfing in a pool in these artificial environments produces surfers that will then, at one point, definitely and irrevocably, I'll go outside and try it in Mother Nature. And I think that's one thing we want to keep in mind. Like, maybe it's, you are the only one that has the 2 experiences. What would you say about this whole artificial surfing wave pool? I mean, you're a purist, I'm sure.
Well, I don't think it's exactly correct to compare indoor skydiving and indoor surfing because they do not correlate to their parenting sport the same way. Because in the first place, indoor surfing is tend to solve the problem of people not being able to surf inland, basically bringing it to wider locations. While indoor skydiving is rather making it safer for humans to fly, right? So surfing already as a sport was way more developed than skydiving. On top of that, there is a difference, let's say, between people visiting the surf pools and indoor skydivers. Like, the sport of indoor skydiving is actually ridiculously small, and we have about 35 to 40 million surfers in the world, right? But if we're talking about first-timer skydivers, like clients, like visitors, right? Yeah, we have millions of those, but they do not really transfer into sport even a little bit. While surfers, of course, there is just handful professionals. I mean, okay, not handful, but like hundreds of professionals, several hundreds of professionals. And the rest of those 35 millions, they're actually still athletes. They're not just one-timers. And the whole industry is actually the whole industry is driven by them. I mean, it is driven by them via the brands, via the surfing brands, which are the economic power of the sport, but not by the manufacturers of, for example, surfing waves. So I think if you want to look up to surfing, you first of all have to think how to turn bigger amount of first-timers into sportsmen, into beginners, intermediate, but still, frequent visitors. And then we can somehow, push the industry forward.
Simon, allow me this one question, and don't want to put you on the spot, but like what Andrey just said now, obviously skydiving, it's different. It's surfing in terms of size. I think it's very much comparable because communities were not huge. I mean, surfing is being practiced in a select number of sports, of locations. California, Australia, South Africa, not much more. France, no, you know much better. But absolute numbers really are not really all that different. And also, skydiving-wise, who says that we will be able to jump out of aircraft forever and ever, everywhere in the world? Because you're going to have air traffic limitations, you're going to have a lot of factors that influence access to airspace, and actually you could look at it the same way. Indoor skydiving could be the real substitute and making it more accessible for people around the world.
Was that a question?
Well, this was me just...
It's just an introduction,
No, like,
That's for you to test you.
So here's the question, Simon. What's your view on that?
Maybe it's me.
So you pass me the ball.
No.
Or the hot potato.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I see indoor skydiving and outdoor skydiving as two totally separate things who are brought together only by a certain group of participants who decide that they wish to actually practice them both. And, just seeing the competitions that are going on at the moment, one of the things that indoor skydiving manages to do in the same way that surfing brings the indoor surfing, Wavegardens, etc., bring it to people who aren't near the coast, we bring it to people who have a different age and different abilities. So all abilities can now fly in the tunnel, all ages can now fly in the tunnel. Literally the youngest we've had is 12 weeks, the oldest is 103, 104, so just anybody can fly. And I think one of the mistakes we make is thinking of ourselves as being part of skydiving. We're not part of skydiving. We're a separate sport in our own right. And I kind of do this in a contentious way because I think if we think about it like that, it'll reset our boundaries as to whether or not we really are part of skydiving or whether we're our own thing. In fact, I like to think that people who jump out of the planes are just simulating what we could be doing indoors rather than the other way around. It doesn't have to be that we're the simulator. We're actually the practice ground now for the people who do want to go off and practice outdoors in much the same way that, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about the indoor climbing because it's an industry I've watched with great interest for many years as to how they've actually originally come from outdoors, totally repurposed themselves, and including the organization of themselves, and then now built their own events, which are the new Olympic events, and before those people are going back outdoors and practicing again. And indoor skydiving in a very, very short time has totally and radically changed the outdoor skydiving. And that's only because we have time. And if you believe in the 10,000 hours of purposeful practice to get to the world elite level that most sports are able to do, you can never do that in skydiving. You just physically can't get 10,000 hours, but you can get there. And you look at the Wittenberg kids, I hate to think how many hours they have, but that will be in the thousands already. and they're not even allowed to jump out of an airplane yet, age-wise. So things are going to change, and I don't think that we necessarily need to try to bring ourselves together with skydiving, but we need to tread parallel paths, and at the right moments we need to re-engage with each other. But we don't have to think ourselves as a derivative of the other.
I really appreciate that argument. I think I fully agree with you.
And for the record, I'm a skydiver.
You're a skydiver?
I very much love that sport to the end of my days, in the same way that I love the indoor skydiving.
And basically, circumstances led you to the indoor variation of skydiving. You were had an accident, had to spend some time laying down and thinking, and all of a sudden here was indoor skydiving. I think you're absolutely right. I think right now we need to really take advantage of Reindert. Reindert, he used to be the Secretary General of the International Federation of Sport Climbing. Started pretty much their Olympic campaigning, I think, in 1990-something. Had their first appearance in the World Games in Duisburg, and really put in a very convincing appearance there. So you take it from here. I have a video prepared, not exactly as per your instruction, because I think it's basically the Olympic qualifier that was...
Okay, no problem at all.
Okay,
No
all
problem
right.
at all.
So I give you the word. I think maybe we can play right now the first 30 or 40 seconds of this video with sound, and then we'll take the sound down, and you just tell us about the Federation's experience. The Olympic was, they did this differently from Aguirre, and differently from most other sports, including FAI, and I was involved in dance sport. They really took, I think, the right approach to convince the key stakeholders in the Olympic movement. So please, let's go with video number 3. And this is the Olympic qualifier that took place in, I think, November or December last year, very close to here in Montpellier. They have 3 events, but he will tell you about this.
Other than Olympic seeding and, of course, the kudos of winning the competition. As such, the climbers were able to enjoy themselves a little more than normal, focus on putting on a good show, and
This is what they-
Inufe Pans play
This is the speed event, where it's about the fastest one. It's a standardized wall on a standardized route, and it's a record. You can go for a world record on this. It's very short, but it's very hard to do it that fast. I can't even get that time on a ladder, so. For the Olympic bid and for the Olympic Games in 2020 in Japan, we were actually ordered by the IOC to have a combined event with all the 3 disciplines. Normally the athletes are specialists in only one event, and this is now a 3 discipline event, and you have to be good in all the 3 disciplines. This is bouldering, where it's not about how high, the height. We don't use rope in this, but this is about difficulty, making very extreme hard moves, only using your fingertips or things like that, and it's really extreme hard. But it's one of the safest parts of the climbing, because you stay close to the ground. When you fall only on a mat. But just see the moves they make, and just try it with only nothing and 2 fingers. I don't know how long this takes.
It's altogether 5 minutes. You can just continue.
But I will tell something else about the thing. I was asked by Roland, and actually first I was surprised why I was asked for skydiving to be in the panel. My time back with Roland and also Joachim was the 2005 World Games in Duisburg. Before, the climbing was part of the Mountaineering Federation. Our roots are in the outdoor sport. Actually, I don't call it a sport, I call it an activity, because a sport is recognized by rules, and mountaineers, they laugh at rules. It's man versus nature, and it's not man versus man. But the roots are still there. Climbing, it was outdoor activity. Then, at a certain point, it starts to get inside, because for a lot of people, they start to use it as a training at home to be better outside. And then people start also to realize that it's like people say, when you bring the mountain to the people, the mountain is very close to you. And it means that we could bring climbing to urban regions, which makes it more accessible for other people to come. But with that, we also create a new world, actually, because the old traditional mountaineers is a group of people. I think it's the same like the skydiving people who do the outside. It's a really small world, and most of them are coming in it by family or friends, but not because you are reading it and it's very interesting, but you have a way to get in. It was also that with the climbing and the mountaineering. Then it went go inside, and we get the possibility of attracting kids, and kids is our key for success. Kids love competitions. And when we started with the climbing, a lot of kids were saying, why are we not in the Olympics? Before, we only had our own bubble, our own balloon. We loved to make it, and for our own world. And we had a lot of fun. People enjoyed it because it was our sport. We had our own events. But with the kids who want to more compete, we see that there was a necessity to go outside. And with that, the World Games was actually our first possibility to get in a multi-sport event. At that time, I was Secretary General of the commission in the Mountaineering Federation, and let's say it this way, I knew the people of the World Games by chance. And that was an easy door for the first step, but in the end, the sport has to prove itself. And we did a good job, but we had a lot of guidance also from Joachim and Roland to make the sport visible on a way not as we see it, but as other people look to it. And that is also a change in mentality. If you make the sport for yourself, it's nice, it's always nice because you know, but you also make it nice for other people to watch it. And with that, we grew. Then we had the idea of to get in the Olympics, but we were a small federation, we had no money, and actually we were thinking the Olympic movement will kill us. So we had a policy, and we didn't speak up it loud, but we will never knock on your door and beg to get in. Please come to us and you beg us to come in. So when we start with our own federation, because in practice it doesn't work together with the mountaineers, we realized that we need to have an all-new international federation for competition climbing, which is mainly indoor climbing, although some walls are outside, but it's all the same. And we realized they come to us. And for us, the Olympic goal was the only way that we improved every year the sport, make it better and better, safer. And as it was said before also by Jay, our key factors were actually, our success factors were safe sport, children, school sport, and gender equality. And that is what the IOC wanted. And they came to us. And when we started in 2007, in 13 years, we are in the Olympic program, the fastest sport ever did, with exception of the starter sports.
And also, I think you cannot put enough emphasis on that, the sport or the international federation that spent the least money. I can tell you that a lot of other federations have spent fortunes. Yeah. Not the FAI. I was working on the Olympic bit of dance sport. We really spent a hell of a lot of money. Yeah. And now in terms of your success story is the growth.
It's the growth, but we were confident that we had a good sport. We believed in our sport. And actually we made the sport for ourselves and for all the people who want to enjoy it and to watch it. And the success was, basically we brought the mountains to people. And I think every week somewhere in the world opens a new climbing gym. this year, this last 2 months in Holland already, which is a country with no mountains at all, 3 new gyms were opening. And it's growing.
And as a matter of fact, we talked about that over dinner just very recently in Abu Dhabi. I think it's one of your huge tunnels, the biggest tunnel in the world, just opened up. It's not just the biggest wind tunnel, it's also the biggest, the highest climbing wall. I think it's 140 meters. It's, I mean, you probably have to have God knows what to watch them if they get to the top. So there is a lot of synergy there, no?
I think there's a lot of synergy, especially because the indoor sport brings safety to the sport, especially although outdoor, let's say the outdoor skydiving was also safe, but it's in the mind of the people. And when you ask parents with little children, they don't like when their children take a high-risk sport. And when you lower down the risk, then they come in. And that made us possible to go for school sports, and school sport is the first step. And as I said also to Joachim, the World Games was our first step also to the Olympic. If we have not done that, taking part in a multi-sport event, we would never be in there, because we could prove it on a level that we can make a sport. And every year we try to improve ourselves.
How important was it to repurpose the events to become viewer-friendly?
What do you mean?
So the events, originally indoor climbing was very technical, and it was the old school climbers coming indoors, and now the
new ones,
you have to change it into a new event.
Yeah, but it means that we reduce time. We made it more, we're talking with a lot of people, make it a little bit more better to watch for people.
And how important is that to the industry?
For the industry, it's very important because if the sport is growing, it means new walls. And the industry has one goal, building new walls. And therefore, when we start talking with the manufacturers of climbing walls, because they were a group apart and we were, it didn't work. They produced completely different walls than we're using. And now you see, they make the same, the walls actually we require for the sport and not for some leisure thing as in a theme park. It's based on the sport, and there is the advantage for the producers. If you work together, you grow together. And we all have one goal, it's meaning growing of the sport. And it's not because we don't like manufacturers or we want to. It's the main purpose is growth of the sport, and then you need all the parties who are involved.
Well, thank you very much, Reindert, and let me remind everybody, you will have the chance to talk to Reindert during coffee breaks, during lunch. I think we can only scratch the surface while we're here in this podium discussion. Afterwards, it's up to you to ask him the right questions. He will have the answers. It was spectacular. I think it really is important now that we get to talk about the Olympic quest that the FAI undertook in view of Paris 2024. And I think the two entities behind that bid, I mean, other than the FAI, were first and foremost probably the French Parachute Association, Federation, and then I think the industry support, the partner who made it all happen, iFLY Paris. Let's very briefly play in video 4. We might not even have to really watch it all. You can start talking over it at any point. David? Okay, here we go.
So you give me the ball now?
You have the ball.
That's good. Thank you very much. Well, you're watching a video which was not done for indoor or outdoor target. This video was done by a professional company to try to reach those who are not involved in our community. Because, well, we all know each other, and I want just to go back about what has been said. We have to also to remember that indoor or artificial, because it could be also a confusion area where you are talking indoor or artificial. The surf, it's an artificial one, because it's practiced also outdoor as well. And the climbing walls could be also put it outdoor, and then it's becoming an outdoor competition with artificial grips. So let's talk about that. It always came from those who wanted to train. That's it. Where it started. When I was, I'm a former world championship, 4-time, just to answer your question, and others. But I was frustrating at the end of the training day, mainly when it was bad weather. I was not able to train anymore. And when you want to be the best, which is in a career sportsman or sportwoman, it's a target you have. You want to be the best. Where are the best? In Australia, in USA. They are in the Royal Marines in UK. You want to beat them. You want to be better than them before wanting to be better than you. So you want to train a little bit more. How can you do that? It always starts with the need of training. Look, when you are in a fitness course, you have bicycle to run, you are running and you train with artificial machine, and it came from that. During my study, I have been involved in a course with high-level athletes doing rowing, doing archery and all that, and they were using the same thing. And at the end, even talking with some climbers, because I live in close to Gap, the big cliff Seus, where I share also time with a lot of climbers. At the end, it's semantic. We share the same. I mean, skydiving, of course, it's not skydiving, but in my country, we do not call that skydiving. It's led by the Parachuting Federation, but it's called fly in the wind. So everybody can use semantic to play that. In your federation, in this federation, there is conflict of generation as well. So we are saying, well, this is not surf, this is not climbing, and this is normal. This is the way how to handle that when you are a new sport. The maturity is become when you will not care anymore by saying indoor is not outdoor, whatever. We share the same value, and we use the wind for outdoor. And sooner or later, as in climbing, as I understand with my friends, sooner or later, those who are doing outdoor, they also want to do indoor, they also want to be a little bit wild, a little bit risky, well, with the testosterone growing up a little bit. They want also to see something else, even if some of them, they just want to stay on an artificial wave, why not, or an artificial wall. So starting from that, it was normal for a body who is handling parachuting in France and handling as well the indoor to have a view of what's going on. Paris is the host city. Are we doing something or not? If we didn't do anything, you will all blame us. Of course you will all blame us. What are you doing, the French? Are you sleeping or what? There is Paris, your federation is held in Paris, and you are not doing anything. What's going on? Something has not been said a little bit deeper. We have a bad reputation in skydiving, parachuting. The part, skydiving, it's a free fall and under canopy. We are a risk sport, which all these gentlemen involved in IWGA, IOC, and they don't want to see that. And they are very embarrassed when there is a big accident in cycling at the last Olympic Games in Rio. So they don't want to see that. And even if skydiving is safer and safer, we know that, safer, we cannot guarantee that it's going to be as safer as they want. So what's going on? We have the indoor skydiving, the wind tunnel skydiving. Oh, I don't care the semantic you will use. It's safer, that's true, and it's also fitting the millennials' wish. Well, what I'm saying is the millennials say, oh, what time is it? I finished my work. It's 6 o'clock. I cannot go to make a skydive. Yes, the wind tunnel is here. I can go to the wind tunnel. I know Manu, I know everybody. Hey, do you have a slot for me? Or, no, not in 5 minutes, in half an hour. That's good for me, like you are doing in fitness. So it fits also what the Occidental, the European and Occidental society wish. That's it. It's also a fact. So it perfectly fit that, and which is a good tool. And we knew in advance that sooner or later it's going to be a business, of course. My friend, we are doing rowing 20 years ago with the first concept machine. Mm-hmm. They were doing rowing, and now there is an indoor world championship in rowing where you have hundreds of rowing machines, and they are not
And
on the
the World
water,
Games.
they're in no water, they are indoor, they have no the feeling of the water, they have no other weather, they have no other wind, etc., etc. Another point is there is not too much individual sports when you are in outdoor. Freestyle is not a solo one. Freestyle is always a team. You need the videographer. For Master Skydiving, they have lost one team member. There is no videographer as well. So it's a change of mentality as well. And I'm not surprised that what you say. I agree with that. Probably I disagree that when you say this is not skydiving. If you use another word, it's the same. We share the same value. But it has to live by itself, of course, like the others, and why not? Dynamic, for example. The dynamic is perfectly the product developed by competitors, not by other body. Competitors, they wanted to do something else. On the beginning, it's free fly, adapted, corrected, with their value, with their, which is a good thing, of course. So going back to the Olympic, it was our goal to do something, but we start from a blank page. We put the finger in a wall. I have to be honest. My federation gave me a big part to develop all that, and also in connection with the International Federation, the FI. Fortunately, we have also connection with iFLY, but how can we start from a blank page? Why blank? Is there a guideline about that? No, there is not a guideline. Who is giving us advice? Not the other opponents, not the other federation. They shake your hand, they make a big smile, and at the end, if they can, well, I will probably use a wrong word, so I'm not saying it, but you are their opponent. They are not going to help you. Who is going to tell you there is no need to go because you have no chance? IWGA? No, certainly not. IOC? No, certainly not. They encourage the federation to go ahead and to try to promote their events, and sooner or later, maybe if, it could be interesting for us, then they catch you. I met Jérôme Meyer, UCI Olympic, and I always remember what he said, in which a big tilt in my brain. He said, if the IOC wants you, they will come to you, and then you will, in brackets, off record, shut your mouth, and you will adapt yourself. This is exactly, I'm sorry to say that, but I see the development of Tokyo, and now it's not the same for Paris. You have lost one event. Why?
No.
Well,
the event is still there. We got one.
But we call it differently. So you need to adapt yourself, and who is giving guidance on that? So we have to face that. So we start from a blank page by having also seen what's going on in Tokyo, what's going on in Rio, just to see how the International Federation has tried to handle, to develop their project, and to fit with the Olympics values. That's it. And we were internally fighting about, those people who said, it's a flat blade of formation skydiving is better. That is very technical, very fast. How can you sell that? And the others, they said, no, this is dynamic. No, this is freestyle. This is freestyle with the music. We have also this battle. I have not the answer. Maybe we have to create a new format. We must create a new format if we want to go ahead. If we don't want to go ahead, why do we need to create a new format? I have not the answer. But it was starting like that, and the project itself, the wind tunnel themselves are already in place. They have business model. We have nothing to say about that. But how to enter in the process on the political side was very difficult, honestly. Honestly difficult to understand all that.
Let me just, it's absolutely clear why the FFP embarked on this process and launched a bit. It's also clear why the International Skydiving Commission endorsed it, even the FAI. Your role, how much faith did you have in a positive outcome? Any at all, or was it an experiment? And how would you justify, like spending probably a fair bit of money on campaigning?
So I thought our chances of getting into the Olympics were, 1%, pretty low. But that's not a reason not to try, because you have to keep trying. And we would have done anything to support the FFP and what they were doing, in the way that if it doesn't happen this time, it's got a good chance next time or the time after. And it's great news that the FFP, even though it's going over to America next, are still right behind that, and that everything that they have learned, they'll move forward with us and indeed with any other body that ends up taking it forward. And it may not be any of the bodies that we know at the moment. It might be a whole new body by then, because we are our own sport and our own business, and we don't know how that's yet going to come out. And the next 2 days will doubtless we'll have lots of interesting discussion.
I'm sure
on
in
how that goes.
terms of brainstorming
Yeah.
ideas and so on and so forth.
So to me, it's really important that we try it, but it's only one of 3 routes to glory in competition for me. But we'll talk about that in a different event, no doubt.
Exactly. Now, sorry, I had to wait for the very tail, and we're behind schedule and all this. I said, well, it's worthwhile pursuing as a goal overall. It's always good to aim high. The highest is the Olympics. It's the reference. There is nothing like it. There will never be anything like it. Not X Games, not anything. But obviously, and this was a point that Reindert made, it is important that you expose yourself at regular intervals to a competitive situation where you have 50 other sports or 30 other sports or 40 other sports, and you try to outperform them in terms of income at the gate, in terms of media exposure, in terms of fan support. And this is basically where the World Games have been. For me, for the last 10 years, I have really made a huge effort to adapt our dance sport product to the World Games. And it paid off in a big way. I mean, in a really big way, because ultimately you're reduced in scale, but you're gaining momentum with the World Games. And you saw a little bit yesterday. Would you consider something like this? I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you look?
No, go on the spot.
You can try to, but I have a board and I have to follow. I'm only the CEO of that, so decisions are taken also somewhere else. But I try to listen very carefully what you said. And first of all, what I just said a few moments ago in my keynote, we listen very carefully to our federations and we look into the products. I would like to call that a product that we put to performance in our event. We always try to educate them, not to teach them. There's a main difference into that. You are the experts. We don't have to teach you on that, but we have to advise you and educate them how you may fit at best into that showcase, into that multi-sports event. And I'm once again very grateful that I could work together with Reindert in 2005. We developed that, and obviously quite successful, together with Roland, working on dance sport. And what happened at that time, and therefore I disagree a little bit with you, we are a member federation. We do not tell our members, you have to go this or that way, you have to stay quiet, you have to follow our rules. That's not our principle, not at all. Maybe different with another big organization. But then you purely talk about commercials, and then we come into a completely different section with the industry, what they are looking for. The problem at all is, what we discussed this morning, is to bring together the very different interests to move forward with the sport and to find the best compromise on that. Whatever you would like to do. If you want to have only a training session, go for that. That's fine, that's great, that's the best you can do, personally. If you're a top athlete, I think you are in a different position. You have to be always careful that you promote your sport, because otherwise it will not develop further on and not improve. So along with that, you have to look into equipment. You have to work together with those who supply that in the best way. And at the end of the day, if you got the best chance for a performance, like in a multi-sports event, and obviously that works better today than for single sports event, but maybe you can listen more carefully to my colleague Hagen Bostov later on in a different session, because he is our marketing and TV coordinator in our organization. How we can promote you, that you can do in very different areas the best for your sport, to develop it with children, to use your top athletes to bring that to the best performance for the audience on site or the media, and also to develop with the industry the best equipment that once again gives a better performance chance. And also then at the end of the day, and I think we didn't talked about that at all, to give the audience the feeling that they are part of that event. A very small example, and I hope they do not take it away, but I don't take it away from my colleague. When we look at our events, our event now in 2021, every sport is competing with the other one, but they know that there are, let's say, that they can do only, they have to deliver the best for the period they are in the event. And that is what they can do. They don't have to look really to say, okay, I have to be better than water ski, or I have to be better than gymnastics or whatever. No, do it on your own. And then at the end of the day, when we look on the media coverage, for example, it grows in itself, and your sport also has the benefit of that. So sometimes we have to get a step back to also standardize procedure to make ourselves better understandable to the non-sport specific audience, to grow and to get the attraction on that. And that's what you're looking for, huh? You're doing your sport because it's not only personal for you, you want to have that. You said training is very important, but to have also the exposure and to get the feedback from the audience is also something that puts your testosterone even higher than only to have a good training session or something like this. So here we are in a situation to fulfill all this, and at the end of the day, to really have then, let's say, the best situation for the sport, and the audience is also very important for that. There's one, I think you can Google that also too, or you look it on YouTube. What makes really an event, a multi-sports event today different than before in the 80s or 90s? If you do not get the spectator, you get lost on the way. Yeah. And that's the bottom line for everything. So if you want to grow, if you want to be a good partner for your sponsors, for everybody, even and once again, and always in first line for the athletes, that is what we have to look for when we try our best coming together. And also just not to speak against you, but to say very clear, our organization does not go into internals of our member federations. They have to discuss that at first. It's very easy, for example, for a sport like korfball. You may not know that very well, but it's close to basketball. They only have that game. Fine, done. But in your federation, you have so many different disciplines.
We're a multi-sport federation.
So this, let's say, umbrella organization has at first to look into what is the best to promote our sport at all, and to bring it down for a multi-sports event with the correct disciplines that you got the attraction on.
I think they were doing that, to be fair.
Just to be a little bit more accurate, maybe I have been not very well understood, and I would like to apologize. I was saying that when we start this project, we know that 1% of the chance to be in the Olympics, it's a reality, and I share that with you. And I just say that who is going to tell us, no, don't go ahead because you will lose your time.
Well, circumstances.
This is certainly not IWGA or certainly not IOC. This is my just concern. I didn't say anything else. Or if you have understood something else, I would like to apologize. I just say nobody was ready to tell us, no, don't go because you will storm in energy, because you need to have new sport incoming, and I perfectly share this opinion that you are not trying to influence or whatever. This is us to make the housekeeping, to present the best product for the audience. I agree with that, but none of the bodies we have met were able to tell us, no, don't go. You will fail, but that's normal.
Okay, allow me this one thing. We are behind schedule. We are falling further behind schedule. I just want to ask this one question. It's the last one, but then I would say we can continue this during the breaks, during lunch, during this and everything. But right now, my question to you, and the guiding principle of the World Games is, we don't want to produce any white elephants. Nobody needs to build any stadia to host the World Games. Almost the contrary applies. If you have an existing venue and it's an attractive sport, it's a plus. Now here you have this white elephant element limited by the private industry, because they chose, let's say, take Chengdu. There is a wind tunnel there. I think it's yours, no? Chengdu, China? I don't know. You have some, no, I don't, but in any case, you wouldn't frown upon this, let's say Los Angeles, you all of a sudden have this private venue, you do it with the bowling alleys regularly.
Yes. Yeah. We use only existing venues or mobile solutions because obviously also, that was another point you mentioned, just to make a sport well known. But with mobile solutions, that does not cost so much. So, therefore, I went also here. You're correct. Chengdu has got such a momentum. We signed in for 2025. Seems to be a long way to there, but it's just around the corner when you organize such an event, and to prepare everything also together with the member federations. And
obviously.
Yes. So here we are, and therefore I was very interested in it and to listen to the discussions.
We have to probably really right now bring this to a conclusion.
May I
Yes,
say
please.
one last remark to Joachim, because we had a lesson from the World Games. We learned as Climbing Federation a very important lesson, that learning to look to your sport, not from your sport, but from the outside. And when we see our climbers, we asked the climbers who were there at the first World Games, what was for them the most important thing? And they say, together with other athletes, the passion, seeing the passion of all the sports, because we were not competing with other sports, but all the athletes, they saw other athletes training hard, working for the highest and the best qualities. That have they in common. They have different sports, but they have one goal, be the best. And they work for that, and they do everything for that.
Really, Andrey, very last.
First of all, I would like to have some clarification here on like the sport and the way we call it. Like I don't really understand the idea of separating indoor skydiving from skydiving, but I see where the confusion is coming from the name itself, because we called it skydiving. And now we have this indoor skydiving, and yeah, both of them are really a part of body flying, as for me personally. And I think this is the way we should be looking at it, like two disciplines, like free ride or park skiing, right? So maybe for the future we call it World Body Flying Summit or something. That's gonna actually bring more people to this.
Body fly diving.
Okay, I really.
One more thing.
Yeah.
One more thing. Like we keep on talking about popularity of the sport, and well, there is no popularity in indoor skydiving. Let's just look at it straight. If we're talking about climbing gyms, like 3 climbing gyms opening every week, how much every climbing gym brings sportsmen in?
A lot.
Like 200, 300, 400, 500. What do we get if we open one more tunnel? 20 sportsmen? I mean, 10 instructors and like 10 wealthy sportsmen. Like that's it. So if you really want to bring popularity to the sport, what I believe is that we need to focus on actually developing those sportsmen, or maybe dedicating some part of the industry towards, actual sport development, because the sport is expensive. Like most of the people can't afford it. If we're talking about like regular market price for tunnel time. So I think it really needs to take some shift over here, and maybe besides having just manufacturers here or like other influencers, maybe you actually need to bring operators here who are charging this money, and so we can all sit down and figure out how we can boost the amount of people. So we have, 300 sportsmen in every tunnel that we open.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In conclusion, and I think what you just mentioned right now, this will lead into the topics of other sessions. And already session number 2, which is coming up next, will be addressing the point you made with Jay. He will be your host. Now, I thank you, gentlemen, very much for having contributed. Reindert, it was a pleasure seeing you again here. And now, please, the next panelists, come on up. We'll have to change the microphones because we can't afford more than the 6 we have. I would like to ask David, can you roll in the World Games video while we're doing this change, and then we move right into the session number 2. Question and answers. We will take questions by email, by chat, and probably try to find some time during the next 2 days to answer questions to this very, very topic. Thank you very much. These are the World Games, last edition held in Wrocław in Poland. Spectacular event.
Excellent work.
5 minutes maximum. No, you need to. Sorry, I mean, I tried to. We started. And we're not going to catch this up.
No, 15 minutes is not bad.
No?
Wow, it's a great race.
No, lunch we can move.
And normally what they say is better late than early.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely magnificent.
I hear you won. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Good.
thanks. It was good.
So, and that was a music performance?
Yeah.
What kind of music?
It was hip-hop for sure.
Hip-hop.
Yeah.
Hey.
It was good.
¿Ah? ¿Qué? Eso es la primera de 3 sesiones aquí. Ahora de la segunda. Tenemos un retraso de 15 minutos. No recuperar el segundo.
It's a goal.
Oh, good to see you.
Hello?
Wow.
Hello?
Just look at that.
That's magical stuff.
That is unbelievable.
Okay.
We people, marvelous, playful creatures. To rule the river, we caught it in a box. To outrun time, we broke the ribbon of the main road. To overcome gravity, we rose above the clouds. And this time, we capture the sky and bring one piece to the ground. To hold the wind, to master gravity, to free your dreams. We are the life, we are the time, the passion, and the revolution. We are mad. We people, marvelous, playful creatures. To rule the river, we caught it in a box. To outrun time, we broke the ribbon of the main road. To overcome gravity, we rose above the clouds. And this time, we capture the sky and bring one piece to the ground. To hold the wind, to master gravity, to free your dreams. We are the life, we are the time, the passion, and the revolution. We are mad. marvelous, playful creatures. To rule the river, we caught it in a box. To outrun time, we broke the ribbon of the main road. To overcome gravity, we rose above the clouds. And this time, we captured the sky and bring one piece to the ground. To hold the wind, to master gravity, to free your dreams. We are the life, we are the time, the passion, and the revolution. We are mad.
Got to get people back in here.